Hello, and welcome to DomainVestors.tv. I'm your host, Morgan Linton, and today is Sunday, July 5th. I wanted to start off by wishing everybody a very happy July 4th Independence Day. Hope that everybody had a great time with family and friends and that all of you stayed safe. You never know, you have to be very careful when you're dealing with any kind of fireworks. I always prefer to watch them from a far distance away. So, what's this video about today? This video is about selling your domains through a listing service. Now, like I've said before, there are a number of different ways to sell your domain names. And over the next few months, I'll detail all those different methods. But today, I'm going to be talking about using a listing service. The great thing about a listing service is that if you have a large portfolio of domain names, it's very easy to put all of these up on a listing service quickly and be able to see if there's any interest that you see right away, and then continue to improve your listings within the listing service to see if you can find people that may be searching for a domain that's similar to yours, and you can really get a good idea of how much interest there is in particular domains in your portfolio. This is very useful if you have, suppose, a portfolio of 1,000 or 2,000 domain names. If you throw these on a listing service and you notice that 20 of those domains get a lot of interest and no one seems to care about the others, well then you'll really know where to focus either your development efforts or your selling efforts if you really are trying to sell your portfolio right away. And so there's a few things that you can know about listing services. The first is, what are the listing services out there? Well, there's three big players in the domain listing service game, and that is Afternic, Sedo, and Snapnames. If you're not familiar with these, make sure you go to all of their websites and check them out. They're all great services. This is actually not a video comparing the services. I'm actually just going to tell you how to work with a listing service in general. But these are all great services to work with. Probably the biggest or the highest volume listing service out there is Sedo, but Afternic also does a huge volume of domain names, as does Snapnames, so they're all great choices. So what do you do with a listing service? Essentially what you do is you give them your portfolio of domains, or the domains that you would like to sell. The great thing is that rather than having to go in and individually type a domain name, select a category, you can, with these listing services, actually copy and paste a list of all your domains. And what they'll do is they'll import them in there, and then you can just go through the whole list of domains you have and select which category the domains fall into, as well as put a description with the domain name. Now, this is what a lot of people miss with listing services, and why people say, oh, well, I can't sell my domains through listing services, nobody's interested, or people view the listing but nobody bids. And that's really because a lot of people think that just by putting their domains on a listing service, they're actively selling their domains, and nothing could be further from the truth. The way I look at this is like selling a house. Okay, if you wanted to sell a house and you put up a listing through a real estate agent, and all it had was a block that said no photo, and then under it that says house on this street, well, a lot of people would want to know more information, and they might not be that interested in your house. They don't know much about it except what street it's on. And hey, if it's a desirable street, great, you could get some bids, but you would definitely get even more bids if you had some nice photographs of the house, if you had some details of, hey, it has crown molding, it has 2 fireplaces, it has a beautiful remodeled master bedroom. All those details will add value to the seller. And the same is true with a domain name. When you put a domain up on a listing service, if all you do is put the domain and the category the domain falls within, well, when somebody clicks on that, unless they're really inherently interested in that domain name, there's no selling going on. All you're doing is listing. And remember, when you're using these services, you want to actively sell your domains. And that's the trick to a listing service, is actually writing a listing for each of your domains. Now, this can take a long time if you have a portfolio of 1,000 or 2,000 domain names. That's why I always suggest domainers pick your top 50 or top 100 domain names, sit down and write a good paragraph or two about each one that you're going to use in the listing service to actually sell your domain. Then you're actually promoting the domains that you own. Well, what do you put in that entry there? Because a lot of people say, well, what do I say about my domain? I mean, I think it's a great name, you should buy it too. No, there are some things that buyers are looking for, and I can tell you what those are. And it's really a few main points that if you hit upon those, you can attract certain buyers. So one of the first things you want to do is mention the amount of visitors the domain gets, if it gets some already. If you hide this information, people are never going to know it. So suppose your domain already gets 200 or 300 visitors a month, put in the listing, hey, my domain name, blah, 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 gets X number of visitors per month. And then, hey, does that generate any revenue? If so, let people know. My domain gets 500 hits a month and generates $3 a month. It's done so for the past 6 months in a row. There, just with that little bit of information, you've created a huge value proposition around your domain. If somebody sees the name and likes it and goes, hey, that's a domain I want, and they click on that listing and they go, wow, not only is that a name I want, but it has existing traffic, it has existing revenue, well, now you're actively promoting and selling the domain. That's like saying with the house, it has crown molding, it has 2 fireplaces, it has a remodeled master bedroom. The person may know they want to live on that street, but they are more excited by a home that has all those features they're looking for. What else can you put? Another great thing to put down is actually the popularity of the keywords, which once again, go to Google AdWords keyword tool. I talk about this almost in every video and post I have on this blog, and that's because I think it's an essential tool for anyone to use. And use that tool to determine how many monthly searches there are for the keywords in your domain, and include that information in the listing as well. So my domain gets X number of hits a month, generates X amount of revenue, and there are X number of searches for it a month in Google. Now you're creating a value proposition for your domain. You don't necessarily have to have any revenue or traffic, but you can always put down the popularity of the keywords in your domain, which is why when you pick those 50 or 100 domains from your portfolio that you're going to list with the listing service, make sure those are domains that actually have some value that you think people would be interested in and have something about them you can promote. If you find yourself looking at that domain and saying, well, there's really nothing I can say about this domain, well, why would you think someone would want to buy it? You should have at least one good thing to say about your domain if you think that somebody is going to want to buy it. And that's why it should have traffic, it should have revenue, it should have a great domain that, hey, gets a lot of searches in Google, has a lot of advertiser competition. And those are really the top 3 things that you want to put in a listing. Other things you want to put is if you already have a website on the domain. Have you spent time developing a logo and graphics for the site? Do you have articles that are written on the site that are causing the site to rank well? Make sure to include things like Google rankings. If the site happens to be number 4 in Google or number 3 in Google for a particular search term, let the buyer know. Once again, this is showing what value this domain has, and that's what makes a great sales page or a great listing within a domain listing service. So, next time you go to list your domains, or when you're thinking of listing your domains in a domain listing service, remember, just listing them and putting a category isn't enough. You have to describe what makes your domain special and what makes it valuable. And if you can't think of anything, it's probably not worth much. So, that's my video introduction to listing your domains through a domain listing service. I've had a lot of people ask me about listing services versus forums versus brokers versus private websites. I can go into all this later, but I thought it's really important for people to understand how to make a great listing in a listing service and to get those valuable domains out there in front of interested domain buyers. So, thanks for watching, everybody. I appreciate all the great comments and all the great emails I get from all my readers. Keep those coming. And don't forget to check out my own personal blog that launched last week at morganlinton.com. More to come on that. It's not going to be updated as much as this because this blog is really my focus, and I try to update this blog just about every day. morganlinton.com should be once or twice a week, but definitely a great way to get some insight into my everyday life. So, as always, thanks for watching DomainVestors.tv. Enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your weekend, and we'll see you next week.